All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to my show, live with Frank Morizio. Got a great special guest today. Excuse me. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Going to give some people a little bit more time to jump on the stream. In the meantime, I'll introduce myself. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Frank Morizio. I am a 22-year insurance sales veteran, so lots of experience at that. Started out my veteran career about 29 years ago in the Marine Corps. I enlisted in 1990, spent 8 years in the Marine Corps as an air traffic control radar technician, and a lot of the skills that I learned and the discipline I learned in the Marine Corps definitely has helped my sales career. A while back last year in 2019, I created a video series called Tip Tuesday. And Tip Tuesdays, every once in a while, feature a Morizioism. And Morizioisms are recommendations that I offer as a guide to action or a business tip. But in reality, it's little fixes and tips and tricks that I've used over my career to kind of keep me on track. And I've gotten such a great response to them over the last few months. People said that they wanted more. I started connecting with some other experts to give you really best-in-class practices from folks that are actually doing them today and really excelling in their careers. So today, our topic today, using relationship capital to accelerate your sales process. And we have such a great special guest today. He's actually a personal friend of mine. We met several years ago when our daughters were dancing together in the same studio, and we became friends. And now we've grown such a great business relationship. We are in a business development group together, and I've really learned a lot from Layne. And I've had this relationship capital discussion with him so many times over the last couple of years that I thought this would be a great way to kick off 2020 with my first live show. I think this is going to be the best one out of the gate. So let me tell you about Layne and bring him into the studio. He's an entrepreneur, obviously a connector and a trusted advisor. But to me, he's just a really down-to-earth, great guy and a good friend. He's built his success on relationships, which is what we're going to talk about. But, that only goes so far. You have to have trust and support. So he's going to talk about those as well. And a lot of that support comes from his lovely wife of over 20 years. And something else interesting about Layne, as I bring him into the studio, Layne's goal is to eventually write a book. And it's not going to be one of these self-help books. It's going to be really a retrospective of a storied life with lots of experience. A diehard Eagles fan. As a Giants fan, I sometimes have a hard time being his friend, but I can tell you that one of the most touching moments in my sports career with an Eagle was watching the video of Layne's entire family just come to tears in an uproar when the Eagles won the Super Bowl a little bit back. So, folks, here's Layne Frank. Layne, thanks for joining me today. You are my very first guest of 2020. No pressure, but we're gonna kick this off. So, talk to me, man. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Happy Friday. Happy New Year. Honored to be on the first show. And hello, everybody out there. Thank you for joining. Hope you're in for a treat today, and looking forward to talking about some of my successes, even more importantly, some of my failures and how I've grown from that.
Learning experiences, right?
What I do, what I do day in, day out in regards to relationship capital.
Why don't you tell us just a little bit more about your background? So you're in an enterprise sales role, so a little bit different than me in the direct individual sales. But I think we both believe that sales is sales. And if you use certain processes and repeat them, you're going to be successful. So talk to me a little bit about, what your process is and, what you've had good experience with, if you can.
Yeah, and I'd love to tell you a little bit about my background. You mentioned it, diehard Eagles fan. I'm a born and raised Philly guy, and I was raised in a roofing family. So, to that whole theme of where we're going with this show, I always believe the roots are the foundation of your growth. It sounds a little quirky, because you need to have roots to grow, but it really plays hand in hand with who you become as a person and what you're ultimately do, sacrifice, and succeed in later in life. So as I mentioned, growing up in a roofing family, that was my destiny. I had no other plans other than be a roofer,
Right.
climbing ladders at 8. And I was fortunate because I was the first male Frank to go to college. And
Wow.
even though I had a great experience in college, I knew I was coming back home and going into the roofing business. Well, I realized really quickly that was not going to be my destiny.
Yeah.
I moved to New York in 1995. Did some odds and ends sales jobs, little advertising sales here. I did some insurance, did some stock brokering. Then I had what you call that pivotal moment. I answered an ad in the New York Times for internet sales, and
Mhm.
that was early 1997. Didn't know what the internet was, but I wanted to sell. A handful of us built an internet service provider that got rather large pretty quickly. And at that time, I did not know my customer base over those years, again, became the foundation of the success that I'm having today, because I still work with all these same people that I met 20 years ago when I got into the internet business. From 2002 to 2004, did some technology consulting. And then we talk about one of those defining moments. In 2004, I had to go out on my own. I was really forced to do it. So I went out on my own, started my own business in 2010. I moved in with BBH Solutions, and the rest is history.
So getting
It's been
pushed
a
off,
number.
so getting pushed off the ledge, not necessarily a bad thing, as long as you're prepared. And I think everything that you've done in
Yeah.
your life up to that point, being the first one to get education, being, a member of the family business, and then realizing that that really wasn't going to be for you, moving on to the enemy city. So you had taken several steps along the way to prepare you to actually get out of the nest, so to speak. So the push, not such a bad thing.
Lots of failures. And again, going back to the roots of the foundation to your growth, I only was raised to know how to fight for it. And when you're put into a situation where it's fight or flight, and you're running out of money and you're saying to yourself, what am I going to do tomorrow? You just put your head down and grind it out, and you figure out a way. And I leveraged my relationships over those years to get me to the point where I could start my own business and hit the ground running, and not have to sweat too much.
Yeah. So at this point, I just want to thank everybody that's tuning in. We got some comments here out in Facebook land. We have some comments on LinkedIn. Who do we have? We have Mike Abundanza. Hey, Abo. Thanks for tuning in. Michael Haltman, Mitch Goldberg, as always. What does Mitch have to say? Mitch is laughing about one of your self-help books. Mitch, this is not going to be a self-help book. I mean, this guy has a really interesting life and lots of pearls of wisdom to drop, and we're going to grab some of those from Mitch, from Layne today. Layne, let's talk about relationship capital. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the featured topic of the day, and it's a word that maybe not everybody's familiar with. I certainly wasn't when you first told me about it a couple of years back, but I could tell you that using your philosophy and your system has definitely enhanced not only my relationship building, but it's accelerated my sales cycle. And isn't that something that we all want to do, right? We all want to get the trust up and accelerate. So talk to me about, where the concept came from, kind of how you developed it, and how do you use it in reality? What's in practice, how does it work?
Yeah, and relationship capital is nothing I made up and nothing I'm taking credit for.
I'm
It's
giving it to you.
years and years of reading, learning, educating, surrounding yourself with the right people. But getting to the endpoint of relationship capital, I want to make it clear to everybody that your network is your net worth, plain and simple.
Definitely.
If you
I think there's
don't
a
have
song
that,
about that.
yeah, and if you don't have that in your mind constantly, you might be doing something wrong. I think regardless of the careers that people have and the positions they're in, we're all selling all the time. And I think it starts as a toddler. As a toddler, when you want something and mommy and daddy don't give it to you, you throw a fit to get it and you ultimately get it. You just sold yourself. You look at it in the universal perspective.
Just a
People
matter of price, right?
people as humans are always selling themselves all the time, to achieve the goals that they're looking to set out, to get what they want, to help other people with their achievements. So I take this whole universal approach with it. But to drill down specifically on how I go about relationship capital, I've been in technology now for almost 25 years. And I've been working with the same people since the mid-90s. So let's talk about my network, because I have two types of networks. I have my network that I focus on daily for business, and then I have my influence network. And we can get into the influence network after the network. So in technology, I've carved myself a niche where I specialize in corporate relocations and providing tenants that move into new office space, turnkey technology solutions from soup to nuts. Every office needs to be cabled. They need audio visual. They need phones. They need computers. You need managed services. You need email. That's what I do, and that's what I've done. And it's been a great run. So who are the people in my network that I speak to and meet with on a daily basis? People in the commercial real estate world, from landlords and leasing agents to real estate brokers, building managers, facility managers, general contractors. And you have your flooring people and your furniture people. It's a really tight-knit ecosystem within the commercial real estate world where everybody knows one another, everybody collaborates with one another. And frankly, there's just a lot of activity and work in New York City, but you have to be out there. You have to be with the network. You have to be a trusted partner. And most importantly, you have to prove yourself with your work. This whole city, believe it or not, is really, really small. Everybody tends to know one another.
Right.
And your reputation is everything. You know, I'm fortunate enough to still be doing this after 20 plus years. And I can't recall ever getting kicked out of a building or someone telling me you're no longer ever getting my business.
Right. I mean, Layne, that was great. I mean, thanks for breaking down, who your partners are and, who are those relationships that are really key for you. If you could tell us though, how are you developing the capital with them? Like what kind of activities, touch points, like what's for lack of a better word, what's the schedule or what's the system so that I can develop and let's call it and bank some capital with folks that are important to me? Talk to me about that a little bit.
Yeah, and that's taken a long time to grasp, and it takes a lot of maturity and confidence to be able to move that relationship a step forward. Because as we're young and developing, you're always looking for business, and people are giving business to you. The way to get yourself to that next level is you got to start thinking of you have to give to get. There comes a point in your career where you have to give to get back. So what I've done over the years with my network is really get to understand who they are as people, how they run their businesses, and what help do they need to help them succeed. I made it my mission in 2019 to try to help every person in my immediate network, whether it's solving problems with them, just being a sounding board or an opinion board, and actually finding them net new business to add to their portfolio. So it's a mix, and you have to go down that road to find what people really want out of you as a trusted partner.
Yeah, and I can speak to that from personal experience because there have been times that Layne and I have just had some real good conversations, and the questions that he asks, they're deep questions. It's not, what do you sell? It's what makes you different, and it's why would I work with you as opposed to the other commoditized salesmen that are in your industry. So what Layne has a real knack for doing is asking great questions, and then he doesn't listen to just respond. He listens to understand. We know that's one of the 7 habits of highly successful people, Stephen Covey. So Layne does a really great job of that. And I feel like every time I talk to him, not just even personally, but when we talk about business, I feel like he's really looking to understand who in his network he can connect me to. And Layne's really great at that. And I think that's one of the other keys to relationship capital is not only do you have to be a great facilitator of connections, right? It's one thing to send an email and say, hey, Layne, I want you to meet my friend Mitch. No, it's another thing to actually facilitate that connection. Other than email, Layne, what other experiences do you have? What other methods do you use to really make those connections, those good, solid, facilitated ones?
Yeah, and I'm pretty adamant that when I refer someone to someone in my network, that I attend that first meeting. I think that's
Yep.
really, really important. It really breaks down that wall, sets up an immediate level of trust, and I kind of get to lead it and set the agenda on how I like to go. So that's real important to me. Emails get lost in the shuffle. We live by email. We get too many of them every minute of every day. Look, I'm old school in some ways. Pick up the phone, set up a meeting, get 2 or 3 people in a room together and talk. I've learned how to be a really, really good listener over the
Yep.
years. I think that's really important. We all know the people that don't know how to zip it. So it's important to really listen and understand and, make that connection.
I could tell you this show is a real exercise for me, right? Because I'm one of those folks that, I tend to talk. What's great about not just, hosting the show and picking great guests, and I get to, think about the right questions to ask in the series. But as you can see, my eyes and my head are all over the place because I'm producing at the same time. So what it forces me to do, I have everybody on Facebook Live over here, and I have everybody on LinkedIn Live here, and I'm going to address some of the comments and thank some folks in a minute. What it's forcing me to do is actually shut up, stop talking, and let my guest, who's the real expert, talk. So this is a great exercise for me. I'm really enjoying this. Let's take a look and see who we have online, see if we have any questions here. Let's see. So we have a few more folks that have joined. Wow, nice crowd. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Really appreciate it. We got Mitch Goldberg. Yeah, definitely agreeing that your network is your net worth. He gave you a big absolutely there. I have to agree. Got a bunch of folks on Facebook as well. No questions yet. So for those of you out in Facebook land, those of you out in LinkedIn land, I will address your comments, take your questions as we go. Definitely like this show to be tailor-made to what you folks want to hear.
Yeah, keep it interactive. That's
yeah,
always,
exactly. Layne, let me ask you this. I mean, there's tons of other methods, right? So relationship capital isn't it. I actually like it. It's a great buzzword. But there's lots of other methods of, traditional, I'm doing my quotes, of traditional networking, right? You have what else do you have? You have speed networking for folks that might do that. You have small group facilitated, which is going to be like category exclusive. Then you have some group facilitated that's not necessarily category exclusive, a little more of an open format where it's almost like a dog eat dog world. You got to get in there. You got to get aggressive. You got to make some connections. Then there's the social events. There's tons of those different types of events that are out there and available. What do you use most often, and which types of events do you feel really lead you down the path to relationship capital?
Yeah, and as you know, you and I, we've done them all. We've done the large groups, we've done the small groups, and I've done everything in between. It works for some, it doesn't work for all. I've found my most success one-on-one networking and very small group networking. I would tell people, if you're joining a network group or business development group and there's 15, 20, 30 people in there, you really have to say to yourself, am I able to work with everyone in this group, and do I have the ability to actually refer them into business and find them business? And that's really difficult when you have a large group of people, because there's just some opportunities that might not present itself to you, that low-hanging fruit, where you actually have to go out there and create the opportunity. And sometimes, based on what the person does, it might not be the right time, or even you might not have the right level of comfort to bring that up to one of your trusted partners or a customer or a client.
And that leads us back to your quote before. I have it running down the bottom of the screen there. You have to give to get, right? So you have a limited let's call it a limited box full of folks in your network, and you could only refer the same piece of business or the same introduction or make the same connection to the same person so many times, right? So ever expanding and ever growing relationships definitely is something that comes to mind when we talk about this. You know what else comes to mind is a Morizioism here. So for those of you who watch my Tip Tuesday, my LinkedIn video series, every Tuesday I give about a 1 to 2 minute tip, just something that's really helped me in my career over the years, stay on track. I mean, consistency is it's the key for salespeople. You know, everybody could be in the top 1%, everybody could be in the bottom 1%, but to be consistently where you need to be takes a lot of systems. And, you know, network marketing or relationship capital is, I mean, it's one of those things that you really have to focus on, and you have to have a very long view of it. So I like to say that marketing is a long-term thing. It's not a destination, it's a journey. And I really mean that. It's ongoing, it's continuous. You could never stop marketing. And the challenge sometimes with marketing is that it's difficult to measure ROI sometimes. Like I don't have any, you don't see any sponsorship banners on, you know, running on the screen over here. You're not going to see any advertisements popping up. There's no pop-ups. I don't have sponsors on this broadcast. So it's not really creating direct revenue for me right now, but I feel like this is a marketing activity. I know it is. It's certainly a branding activity. And what we're doing with this show is we are showing folks out there that, you know, I am a subject matter expert, and even better than being just a subject matter expert, I have the best experts in the business that are putting the best techniques to work, and I'm bringing them to you. So most of the people that are tuned in today, as I'm looking, are connected to me, and they watch my Tip Tuesday series. We're getting really thousands of views on the videos, so thank you all for that. But what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to expand my value to you by bringing you folks like Layne. Layne, let's take a look at and see if there's any other questions and comments online here.
Yeah, while you're taking a look, I just want to bring back the you know, the group networking. I've known a lot of people that have had a tremendous amount of success doing it. I emphasize to everybody, meet people, meet as many people as you can, because I always said there's one thing in life, probably the only thing in life that is free, and that's experience. When you get to meet somebody and experience something with them, it goes a long way. But be careful. You don't want to meet everyone because your time is very valuable. You always want to select and meet the right people, and it's not going to work out all the time. But if you focus on it, you get a feel on who the right people are you want to meet and what the next steps you can, you know, take with them are.
Yeah, I could certainly understand that. There are a lot of time wasters out there, and there are a lot of net takers out there, right? And net takers, yeah, you want to avoid those folks. You want to be around folks that always want to try to be net givers. They always want to see how they can add value to you, who they can introduce you to. Hey, you know what? They might even want to do direct business with you. That's not a dirty word these days.
and on that note, some of the best deals that I've done over the past year came from people not in my traditional network group. That's what I mentioned earlier. I have an influence group. So what's an influence group? Super high net worth individuals, influencers, business owners, scientists, inventors. And I said to myself in 2019, one of my goals were to meet 2 new people a week. When I mentioned this to my peers, they thought I was crazy and thought it would be impossible to do. The outcome was, for the first 5.5 months of the year, I shattered that record. What I then fell into was I now had to manage all these new relationships, figure out how to navigate them, how I can help these people while they were beginning to help me. So the second half of the year, I didn't really have the time to meet 2 new people a week, or frankly, meet a lot of new people, because now I had this, call it, influence group of about 40 people that I had access to, was able to communicate with, was invited out to places I normally probably wouldn't be invited to. And it really expanded the types of people I was beginning to surround myself with. And look, money follows money. If you're in the business of making
No
money,
doubt.
which I hope everybody that listening is, you got to surround yourself with money. And even more importantly, you have to invest in yourself. You have to spend on yourself. You have to get people out. You have to entertain. You got to pick up that bill, and you got to make that a sacrifice in order to get ahead.
All great points there, Layne. You know what? And aside from budgeting, because yeah, you absolutely have to make an investment in your business, right? As a salesman, yeah, you sometimes you got to pick up that check and you have to entertain and do the things that create an experience where people want to get a good feeling when they think about you. I mean, one of the things that we do at our firm a lot is we're fortunate we have relationships for sports tickets and we have boxes and stuff like that. And the most effective entertaining that I've ever done for my client is creating experience for their children. You bring a client or a prospect's 10-year-old son on the field at MetLife Stadium before the game, and they're seeing the players, and it's just such an unbelievable experience for them that you find out who their favorite player is, you send the kid a jersey, you get them an autograph. There's no way that after you go through that the client is not going to have a warm fuzzy feeling when he's thinking about you, and it's really just going to accelerate the trust, accelerate the process, and it becomes a checklist. Does Frank have what I need? Can his company deliver it? Are they going to service it? Do I have confidence in them? And if all those are yes, they already like you, you get the green light.
It's the little things. It's the little things that make all the difference.
It definitely is the little things. Hey, I have Eric McGriff out on down in Atlanta, out on LinkedIn. Eric has a question for us. Hey, Eric, thanks for tuning in, man. Eric is asking, what would you say is the best way to get someone's attention and get them in the door for them to give you time? Okay, so Eric and I have worked together over the last couple of years. I've coached him a little bit on some sales techniques. He's in a relatively new business. It's new to him, and he's definitely relatively new to sales. So Eric is having some challenges with the initial approach. He has some doctors and spa owners, and those types of folks are really part of his target market. So any tips, Layne, on how do you get the right person's attention and get your first foot in the door? Talk about that.
Yeah, I think it's a lot easier today than it was when we started out. We come from the days of smiling and dialing. There was no internet. There was no LinkedIn. There were yellow pages and a dial tone. And
sore fingers.
If you were able to survive that and get through it, you could do anything. So what I would recommend to Eric, as someone new in sales, you have a lot of resources at your fingertips. LinkedIn's a great tool. If you're gunning to approach someone and wanting to do business with them, try to find out as much as you can about them. You'd be amazed of some of the commonalities or connections that each of you have. It's an easier call to make if you have to pick up the phone. And I think once you get somebody on the phone and start getting a rapport with them, I always like to do two things very subtly, and it takes a lot of time and experience to get it down. Find a way to compliment the person, and if the opportunity presents itself, tell them a secret. If you can tell someone a secret, they will start having this involuntary trust in wanting to talk more with you. That's a challenge. It takes time to be able to do that.
That's a new one, Layne. You haven't shared that one with me yet. I wrote it down.
That's a Layneoism.
That's a Layneoism, yeah. Patent
Tell
pending.
them a secret. You can tell a new prospect a secret. You got them on the hook.
Tell them a secret. I like that. You know what? I want to pick up on that as well, though. So, agreeing with you 100%. A couple of 3 decades ago when we started our sales careers, it was call everybody if they fit your target market. Call the yellow or white pages, whichever book was your market was in. Get a lot of sore fingers and get hung up on a lot. And when you persevere, you persevere. There weren't constant networking events and constant opportunities to meet people face to face, where a good looking guy like you is really at his best. For me, I would say, and Eric, I've talked to you a little bit about this before, but just want to reinforce for the rest of the audience. I think that you have to use your tools, right? So LinkedIn, not just for research, but you have to mine through your contacts and figure out how to connect the dots. If I need to get into, Layne's company, I'm going to look up all the senior folks in Layne's company, and I'm going to go backwards, starting in from LinkedIn, to figure out how I'm possibly connected to them, and then who on that list that I'm first line connected can give me the most powerful and I feel like the most trusted introduction. And then I'm going to approach that person and I'm going to use a question. It's a very important question. I'm going to ask them, can you help me? If you use that question correctly, you are going to accelerate your process and your trust with people. You're going to show them some vulnerability, and people naturally want to help you. It's human nature to help somebody. So if I found somebody, Eric, if you were connected to Layne and I was trying to get into Layne's company, I'd give you a call. I don't really do the emails and the messaging thing. I'm a phone call guy. I'm going to call you up. I'm going to say, hey, Eric, I see you connected to Layne Frank at BBH Solutions. Do you really know him? Oh, great. You do. Oh, I'm so happy. You know what? I have a perfect solution for their company. They're in my target list. I was wondering if you can help me. Can you introduce me to Layne on a good, favorable basis? Make a great introduction, maybe a facilitated phone call. Maybe we get a cup of coffee if we're in the same area. But I really want the opportunity to get a personal touch on Layne. Can you help me with that? I'm telling you, not too many folks are going to say no to that. And the ones that do are going to smoke themselves out, right? LinkedIn's not a social network. We're all here to do business. We're all here to connect with each other. So if you find folks that aren't going to be willing to share their connections with you, then those aren't going to be good connections. Those are those net takers that Layne was mentioning a little bit earlier. So I would say that would be a great approach, Eric. Hope that answered your question. Well, he's saying I like
and
that.
if you don't mind, Frank, just if I can help
Sure,
out Eric,
please.
let me give him an example of what that
Great.
secret comment was. And it could be as subtle as this, and this is this was a real life story. I had a client getting ready to move into the building. They were a couple weeks out, and I said to them, hey, can I tell you a secret? And they said, yeah, what? And I explained to them, how strict the building was and some of the policies they have, and make sure you have this in place, that in place, that in place, so when your movers finally show up, they're going to be able to get onto the freight. And they not only couldn't thank me enough, but they weren't ready or prepared for that. So you not only valuable information, they also looked at you now very differently and as a trustworthy partner. And it kind of changes the whole dynamics of the relationship. It's those little subtle things that you can mention to people.
Great. Thanks for following that up, Layne. Let's see here. Who else do we have on? Just want to say a couple of hellos here. We have Asher Alweiss is out there. Thanks for tuning in, Asher. Bob Romano is tuning in. Hey, our mutual friend Davey Ingram is tuning in. What's up, Davey? How are you, man?
Davey.
Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate that. Christian Bianchi's out there as well. I don't see any other questions, but you know what, Layne? I think there's something else real key here, and I know we're a little bit over a half an hour now, but
yeah, we talked about a lot of good stuff.
This is I think it's great stuff. I have a few pearls. I wrote a couple down. Compliment and tell a secret. I mean, that's I'm going to figure out how to turn that into a Morizioism with your permission somehow. I think there's one part where a lot of salespeople kind of get tripped up, and it's in the follow-up, right? So if my goal with relationship capital is to grow a trusted network and to be a trusted connector for folks, well, I have to develop relationships with people, and that takes time, and that takes process, and it takes organization. How do you manage it? Do you have some kind of dashboard? Do you use a cocktail napkin? Is there a written plan? Tell me about that, because I think that's a key step that people trip themselves up on.
The follow-up is key, and we are all guilty of not following up all the time and not following up the way they need to. And I use a lot of different mechanisms to try to stay on track with that. Again, I mentioned I'm still a little old school. I got things spreadsheeted. I live by my calendar. I live by notes. We use a CRM here where we're tracking. Fortunately, today, everybody still carries business cards. I have stacks and stacks of business card, organized, categorized, filled with books. What I constantly do with my network is I visit it almost daily. I just run through lists. I'm a very visual, hands-on person. So if I'm not writing it down, if I'm not categorizing it, if I'm not filing it, most importantly, if I'm not looking at it, I'm forgetting about it.
So is it a paper list? Is it a spreadsheet? Like
It's a
where are you?
combination.
Okay.
It's paper spreadsheet. It's literally CRM. It's physical cards. I tell people if you got a system that works well for you, stick with it. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Move forward. Learn to adapt. Be open to new ideas and different ways of doing things. But if it ain't broken, you don't have to fix it. So I think the system I have is pretty good, and I don't drop the ball too often, if ever. Follow up is key to close the deal. So if you're not following up, you're not getting the deal done.
I like your style. I mean, and again, and I'm going to take another question out there, but I think it shows a little bit that we're some old school guys that we like to write things down. I've always felt that not typing, but physically writing on a piece of paper, on a pad.
My train ride home last night.
There you go. I find that when
today.
you physically write it, it's really, it's in your head. That's actually the way I got through school, was I studied by writing. Not necessarily a photographic memory, but the act of physically writing on the piece of paper made it more recallable to me. So that's kind of some old school advice. We have Asher Alweiss is out there asking a question. Ash is in the real estate and real estate financing business. So he's saying he's still in his 20s. What kind of do's and don'ts do you have for guys that are really just beginning to building and growing? I mean, he's already had success in his business, so he's not just beginning to build. But I guess, what kind of habits should he start to establish now so that 3, 5, 7, 10 years from now, when he's really killing it, it's a manageable type of marketing process? What type of advice you have there? Anything?
Learn as much as you can. Learn as much as you can about your industry. Learn as much as you can about the people within your industry, especially your colleagues and peers. They're going to teach you, hopefully, a lot that's going to help shape you and your successes into the future. In your 20s, volunteer. Find some great organizations where you want to volunteer your time, because you will meet a lot of great people that ultimately will not only become your friends, but you will end up doing business with them. Learn, volunteer, educate yourself, get out there for the industry parties, get out there, the different consortiums, the different events, the different types of conventions. You have to just immerse yourself. That age is the time to do it.
Great points. I mean, I think, you're onto something that's near and dear to me. I've been doing volunteer board service for nonprofit organizations for about 20 years now. And it's really enriched my life. What I've gotten most out of it is fulfillment, to be able to lend my time, talent, and temperament to an organization that has a mission that I believe in. And the ancillary, kind of side benefit has been, well, you're sitting on boards with other folks that are in industry and that are in financial positions and are in philanthropic positions to give their time back and volunteer. Those are folks you want to be around. So if you have the opportunity to join a nonprofit board, I would say don't just jump onto a board. I think you have to find a mission that you're passionate about first, and then vet a couple of organizations, because anybody will say, yes, join our board, join our board. They're always looking for, young professionals like you, Ash. So I hope that answered your question. And let's see, I want to start to wrap up, but let's see what else we have. Oh, Eddie Lanzetta's out there. Hey, Eddie, thanks for tuning in. Oh my God, Layne, guess what? One of our favorites is tuned in. Adela Townley is on. Adela's out there in LinkedIn land. Hey, Adela.
Hi, Adela.
Thanks for tuning in. Mikey Tabbitt's out there also. Mikey Tabbitt is a client and a longtime friend from Brooklyn, and now has a Liberty Mutual agency. So thanks for tuning in, Mike. I definitely have some stuff that we can help you out with here. Let's see who else is there. Ash is saying thank you. All right, great. So it looks like we answered his question. Layne, before we wrap, anything else? Any other pearls that you have for us? Anything we might have missed? I mean, I think you really nailed it on the relationship capital topic, and we got a couple of other great ideas out of you. Anything else you want to say to the folks before we wrap?
You touched on it early. One thing I would tell everybody out there is don't ever be afraid to ask for help. People will help you. Ask for help, any way, shape, or form. At the point of my career, I reflect back and look at the 20 plus years of people that have helped me, and they genuinely helped me. I am in the position now to want to help as many people as I possibly can, help them achieve more success, help them achieve better ideas, better strategies. And it gives me the opportunity to fine tune my skills, get to meet new people, work with new people, and just have a conversation and talk. Because I enjoy nothing better than telling a good story and hearing about a good
Hearing
story.
a good story and secrets.
Secrets.
All right. Great, Layne. I'm sorry. There's one more question out there. I don't want to leave anybody hanging. So Rich Tavares is out there, and Rich is asking, how would you handle, and this is good, I want to chime in on this as well, but let you go first. How do you handle random invites, random connection requests on LinkedIn? People you don't know, you may have only one or two connections, not really anybody mutually in common that you know or trust. How do you like to handle that?
Yeah, so I look at every connection invite that comes in. More times than not, I don't usually connect, especially if there is no mutual connections that we have with one another. I look at the industry. I look where they're located geographically. My business is very New York centric and tri-state area. So I look at those things. It's not always, I'm not looking to have 10,000 connections. I mean, I can generally say that everybody I have on my LinkedIn connections, I can reach out to.
Got it. Yep. I'll agree with you on most of that. One thing that I've come to start doing on LinkedIn is I mentioned it a little earlier. I mean, it's not a social network, right? We're here to do business, and just because we only maybe have one or two people in common doesn't necessarily mean there's not an opportunity. So when I get an unsolicited, hey, just connect with me kind of thing, and no note that goes along with it, I'll send them a message. I'll just reply with a message, and I'll be like, hey, we only have these two people in common. As a matter of fact, I don't really know them that well. What interests you about my profile? How can we help each other? And if they come back with an answer that's not a robot and that's not a sales pitch, then we have the opportunity to, I'll close for a phone call. Let's have a discovery call. Let me learn about you and tell you about me and see if there's some way that we can help each other. If there is, I'll take the connection. If there's not, I mean, I plan on tapping out and on connections at some point. So everyone becomes precious to me. So Rich, I hope that answered your question. And again, thanks for everybody for tuning in. Wait, we have a Goldbergism. So Mitch Goldberg is saying that everyone starts as a stranger. Agree 100%, Mitch. And that's why exactly why I like to close for that discovery phone call. Everyone starts as a stranger. Let's spend 15 minutes on the phone. If you're not willing to invest that 15 minutes, what's your real motivation for having me as a connection? And I'm going to say that is Rich is saying great advice. Thank you. Thanks for the question, Rich. Really added to the discussion. And at this point, Layne, I'd like to get ready to sign off. You want to say goodbye to the folks? Any last words? It's
Friday. Everybody enjoy your weekend. Happy New Year. Thank you so much for joining. And Sunday, 4:40 Eastern time. Let's go Birds. Let's go Birds.
All right, I'm taking you off the screen with that. We're not doing Eagles plugs here on my broadcast. So Layne, my brother, thank you so much. Really do appreciate our relationship. I love that not only do you give me some personal advice and we've had the opportunity to help each other and you actually use my service. You're a client as well. So not only do you give me that opportunity, but now you get to come on here and be my very first guest of 2020. And I think we set the bar really high with this broadcast. And thanks for tuning in. Please like this, share this. When the replay comes, if you have comments, you want to go back over it, certainly send me a message. And I could also get Layne to answer as well. So thanks, everybody. That's going to do it. I'm signing off now. Have a
Thank
great
you.
day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.